So if you've got a client who's like, I know I want to make my event more creative, but I have no idea even where to start, what do you do?
We have a conversation about what is the purpose of the event? What are you trying to accomplish? Sometimes it's just a book launch, right? Or sometimes it's they may do this event once a year and they're bringing people into their funnel, right? So we may not have a lot to go on. So then if we don't have a lot to go on, then we just look at existing branding. We always want these consistent through lines. So when the first contact with your attendee is probably some email marketing, it might have some color branding to it, right? You may have a style guide. So we try to
Mm.
carry that through. So then when, we don't get into email marketing part, but when they land and they're looking at this either live or on Crowdcast, Zoom, whatever platform, it looks familiar.
How are entrepreneurs like us daring bravely to build a stage, ditch the sweatpants, and step up to the mic? How do we create our own transformative events so we can get our message out into the world in a bigger way that's not only profitable, but it's actually something we can be proud of? That's the question. And the answers are inside this podcast. My name is Sarah Pfeiffer. Welcome to Green Room Central. Today I brought into Green Room Central Studios Adim Coleman. He's the founder and creative director of Proxy AV, a creative agency that produces amazing live event experiences. They bring art to life in the live environment. Hey Adim, welcome to Green Room Central Studios.
How you doing, Sarah? Getting ready for an event here, and wanted to duck into the office and say hello to my friend. We go way back.
Yay. I'm so glad that we could spend some time together and talk about your superpower with events, which is the tie between creativity and really caring about the outcome. And so, how about
Yes.
we start there? Why do you care so much? Because you do.
Because it is the as Stephen Pressfield refers to it, the war of art, right? Not the art of war, but the war of art,
Mm.
which is a great book too. If anybody's looking for good recommendations, uh, yeah, the
The
War of
War
Art
of
by
Art?
Stephen Pressfield. Have you read it, or yeah, have you?
No, I
Joe Polish
haven't. I'm writing
recommended
it
that
down right
book
now.
years ago, and it's one of the few. It's the only book I've read more than twice. It's a great book. But why do
Really?
I care so much? Because this is my craft, and this is my art. So my artwork
Hmm.
requires a lot of help from other people, right? And I always take it very seriously. So caring, I've realized that nothing happens of significance until you care first, right? You care about the
Mm.
outcome. It's the glue that ties all the stuff together. Staying a couple hours past the production when everybody's gone. It brings you into the ballroom 2 hours before a call time, and I don't like that those elevated cortisol anxiety levels. So if you start with caring, those levels go down during production. So
Yeah, your clients are lucky to have you because you do care so much, and I see that every time we work together, and I think your clients are so
thank you.
lucky to have you. I want to talk about how you bring art into the live environment because I think that's what makes you special as a creative agency that businesses hire to put on the technical part of events. So talk to us about. I know you love to go to art museums every time when you're
Absolutely.
in a new city, and talk to me about how you think about art and being at a live
Well,
conference.
art in general is like one of the few things that makes life exciting, right? To me, anyway. Obviously raising kids it keeps life really exciting. But most of my kids now are adults, and art is just that. It just has an allure to it, and it's one of the things that keeps me excited. And what we try to do, what basically we go to art museums to steal ideas. To be quite blunt about it, right? I think Picasso said that all art is theft, right? It's all just trying to put yourself in an environment that's creative. And for the last event, well, we have an event coming up in Austin, Texas next month, and I went to a museum to just sat down in their cafeteria to get some ideas. And no, I'm sorry, Alexander McQueen. I keep saying Steve McQueen, but Alexander McQueen is doing he has his clothes or his artwork on display. So art is like that last frontier, right? Technology always makes the tools easier to use, but art is the thing that never gets any easier to kind of tackle, easier to manage, and it's a breath of fresh air when you can bring art into a live event and just see people react to it. Now, the goal is to maybe boost engagement if that's important to the client. But for me, it's just the last frontier. Everything else is kind of mundane. The quotes, the travel plans, profit and loss statements. If running a business, you can kind of drown yourself in that, and the art helps pick you up and helps you remember why you got involved to begin with, if that makes any sense.
I think one thing people think about when they think about bringing art into a live conference is the set design. And of course, that's one element of it. But I think also there's an art and a science to the lighting and to the sound. And talk to me about just an example of what you think about and bring to the table.
Yeah, that's a great question too. When we started the company back in 2016, I noticed that most production companies, the creative was an afterthought, right? So they'd have a giant 90-foot LED wall, and they thought, look, we got our LED wall is 30 feet longer than yours. We won the game. But what they put on it was kind of not very thought out. So our value proposition, our kind of wedge into this bloody red ocean, if you will, you read Blue Ocean Strategies, right? We're in a highly competitive market. So our wedge in that market was creativity. And not only that, we don't do things just to be creative. We always trying to find a point that supports the message. For instance, we have a client who's a vocal coach, and for his LED wall, we decided to shape it as almost like an S, right? And that S represents a sine wave. Now, when you're watching the program, do you know it's a sine wave? No, you don't. But the reason why we look for these is it informs further creative decisions, right? So all these little things that we did to kind of subconsciously and consciously support what this person is doing. We had another client that, and a lot of times they don't give you a lot of things to really latch hold on. But when you have a creative staff, and we only have creatives full-time. We've got 2 full-time creative people and an artist in residence. So you can see everything in our DNA is geared towards creativity, right? Even when you come into our shop, there are no manuals, but you'll see a lot of art books. So we had a client that went on a 1-year sabbatical, and it was the first time that we produced a show for this client. So what we did was we made the stage round, right? I'm not a huge fan of a round stage unless I'm doing something theatrical or maybe like a TED style thing. But we made it round for this client for 2 reasons. The circle is emblematic of a return or a journey or a revolution, right? The physical revolution, not the social revolution. So the circular stage represented this person's return to center stage. And what I liked about it, he had 3 major points. It was connection, community, and creativity. So when we had the round stage, we brought the audience in a semicircle around the stage in order to foster connection. So those are some of the things that we really dig deep. Now, did anybody know why we use a circular stage? No, the client did when we told them in the design brief. But you will be surprised when you lead the conversations like that. They really understand, like, wow, we've got a different production. We're not using a production company, we're using a creative agency. So there's so many little things that inform our decisions. And when you have creative people, you have to give them something, right? I think Jon Stewart said there's nothing more frightening than a blank page with no rules. Artists need artist needs rules in order to be really creative. So my job as a creative director is to kind of set these boundaries and then let these young creative guys and gals go to work. It's a beautiful thing when it all comes together,
Yeah.
right? When it comes together.
So if you've got a client who's like, I know I want to make my event more creative, but I have no idea even where to start, what do you do to start?
We have a conversation about what is the purpose of the event, what are you trying to accomplish, things of that nature. Sometimes it's just a book launch, right? Or sometimes it's they may do this event once a year and they're bringing people into their funnel, right? So we may not have a lot to go on. So then if we don't have a lot to go on, like they're not coming back from 1 year sabbatical or they're not a vocal coach, then we just look at existing branding, right? We always want these consistent through lines. So when the first contact with your attendee is probably some email marketing, it might have some color branding to it, right? You may have a style guide. So we try to carry that through. So then when, we don't get into email marketing part, but when they land and they're looking at this either live or on Crowdcast, Zoom, whatever platform, it looks familiar.
Yeah.
Right. And we're trying to give that creative familiarity. And we don't want our productions to look like everyone else. For instance, I am surprised that people are still doing the grid view on the LED wall and keeping it there. So what we do is we use it like paprika, right? We put it there when it makes sense, but then we also add movement to it, right? We use Unreal Engine and things like that to we use Unreal Engine in order to animate those people in the gallery so they don't just look static. I'm glad that other people are still just, you guys continue to put the grid view up there, and Proxy will come and we will we'll kind of break the mold there.
And what he's talking about is how, how Zoom has a gallery view, right, where you can see like 50 people at a time. Well, it is popular, or it became popular during the pandemic, to put it behind the presenter on a big LED wall throughout the entire event. But that gets kind of exhausting and boring for the eye. And so you've just decided, I'm just not going to do what everyone else does, and we'll just be a little bit more creative about it. Thank
Yeah,
you
because
very
when you think
much.
about it, when you go to an event and see an audience behind the speaker, right? So when it was first done, it was brilliant. It was visually
Yeah.
distinctive, and it broke the pattern that everybody else was doing. But once you break a pattern, then you establish a
Right.
pattern, and now we're looking for that pattern interrupt.
That's so good. Yeah. Because your job is to keep the audience engaged, right? And so I love that you're constantly looking for pattern interrupts in the way that you showcase the content. And on that note, how are you using production, the lights, the stage, the scenic, the sound to facilitate the learning experience? Because I know you've got some tricks up your sleeve, and your clients may not even know that you're doing it. What are some things you think about?
I think about the wow factor, right? So if it's a new client, we will look at what they've already done, and a lot of it is just subtle things. And so you can use light to draw attention to certain areas on stage. Sometimes we have clients that like a very high key environment, so the influence of some of the stage lights just doesn't, work out as well. But when we can get a dark environment and we have we had a show and we had a lighting designer, it's always a good thing when productions can afford a lighting designer. And this presenter came to us and she wanted to do something different. It was a multi-speaker event. So we're like, hell yeah, we're we're here for that. So we worked with her to create a dramatic effect where she came in from the back of the room instead of coming in from stage. So then we had the lights focus on her and follow the spotlight on her, thus narrowing people's attention to just what she was saying. So that's one way you can do it. The other way is set design, but we try not to just do set design for set design, right? And you see this a lot with wafer walls, right? I don't know if you're familiar with wafer walls where they have the repeating.
I'm so
Yeah,
not a fan.
it's a design shortcut. So I know why people do it, but you can almost tell that there's just a sales rep typing away at his computer and just saying, let's slap some wafer walls on there and let's go for it. Well, if you're going to use wafer walls, at least make them asymmetric, right? But don't just put this repeating pattern. Break it up with a logo, do something. For other production companies, I'm happy to have you guys continue to do that. You know what I'm saying? So, because you guys create the pattern that we then can easily break. One of the things that we do also, Sarah, is we had a client that has a slogan, and it's three words. So we know from our study of design that human beings are drawn to things that are out of scale, right? So human beings love
Yes.
if it's a giant building, then you shrink it to the size of a Lego. Or if it's something small like letters, we're used to seeing letters very small. We blow up the letters so they're like 9 feet high, right? And what that like a moth to a
Yep.
flame, people are attracted to that thing that's out of scale. And they will take pictures and
Yes.
boost engagement. You throw a hashtag on there, and you've got something going. Even we've got a client that wants stage letters on the stage, which has been done before. But I'm like, okay, how can we not do it the same way? Everybody does stage letters that are the same color. They're all just white foam letters. So I'm like, well, let's make it dual tone, like just something to break that interrupt, right? It's already hard to get people's attention. So when they come to a performance, you can grab their attention by the level of lighting design, stage design, but then you also want to tie it back
Yeah.
to something that's on brand. We're always talking about on brand, and you and I worked with a big athletic wear
Yeah.
company where and it's interesting too, because remember when we worked with that company, what we did were all light touches, right? I like very
Yeah.
clean, minimalistic, light touch designs because when we shoot
Yeah. Me too.
video, you always have to consider that you have a foreground and a background, and you don't want your background being so busy that it competes with the foreground, right? And so the thing that we did for this major athletic company, the design was just very subtle. We weren't trying to prove to them that we're so creative because they have creative people. They've been doing it for 40 years. You know what I'm saying? And you and I would
Right.
just add a light touch, and by the feedback that I think their term was we changed the game for them. It was
I love the way you talk about branding and how it being, I always like to talk about it, how it's a string of continuity that goes throughout to everything within your event, from, like you touched on, the email marketing to what it looks like when they check in at registration to what the set looks like on stage. I really think it's so important, and to remember that we need to present a cohesive look so that guests, it fuels their excitement. It fuels the fear of missing out on social media, because then everything that people are looking at looks like it's part of that thing that you're perhaps possibly missing out on. And I know you think about that. I know you think about, okay, how is this going to look on social media when we take cuts from the recordings and the client goes and puts them up afterwards? And I love that you obsess over that. In fact, you even think about where, talking about the foreground and the background, you even think about where the logo is on the background on the stage scenic, so that it frames within the
yes.
talent, right? How do you tell me about how you think about that?
Obsessively. A couple of less sleep cycles than that I need. But yeah, so everything now needs social proof, and everything is on a video now, right? So and that's difficult because you have to play to the video audience, the people that are consuming it on this guy here, but then you also have to play it for the people that are in the event, right? So and from a design standpoint, that's not very easy to do. And we had a show last time where I focused more on what the in video looked like, because I knew that video will be consumed by thousands to millions versus the in room being
Yeah.
consumed by third, or I'm sorry, 400 to 500 people. And so what Sarah's talking about was
Yeah.
we lowered the logo to make sure that it fit a couple of inches above the shoulder. What I was not happy with was how low the logo was in person. Client was happy, but you know, it's the thing that makes it into my journal on how to fix. And what it is you almost have to design two designs, right? But then when you take two designs, make them into one, they have to gestalt to be a whole, straight up design. So that's
Yeah.
the war of art, that we're constantly battling. And another thing that I do is any production that we are a part of after the event, I look at as many social media posts of that event to see what it looks like from different angles, and have changed the set to correct for better angles, meaning that people take a lot of selfies looking back this way, and sometimes the set looks good on the front end but doesn't look good at the side, stage left or stage right. So we take that into consideration, but it's only after an exhaustive search of social media to kind of figure out, oh, okay, this is where we can improve better. Even down to, like, if you overhang letters, instead of the letters being, facing the audience, what you would want to do is tilt the letters down a little bit as they hang over the stage. So when people are taking a selfie, the letters show up like that. And then when you change the angle from flat to this, that's a little bit of that oh, okay, these letters are at an angle, and that might just catch their attention and or make them want to take a selfie and actually get the letters in there correctly. So psychologically, there's a lot of things that we're trying to do to impress people. So but we also keep what we call a swipe file, and I'm sure that your audience is aware of that.
Yeah.
But I'm real big on the swipe file, and basically, for those who don't know what that is you just keep a file of anything that you like. You just keep it in a big giant file so that you can refer to it. Another good recommendation is Steal Like an Artist. That's a great book, and it basically gives artists permission to steal because all artists steal. And it's a 3-book series, and you can read it in an afternoon. It's really, it's a small book, and if you're in the creative space, it's a must.
Steal Like an Artist. All right, now we've got two.
K, I forget his last name, but it's Austin K.
You talk about two things that you think about as you're designing each event, and you talk about experience versus environment. And tell me how you see those as two separate but also conjoined topics as you design a conference.
That's a great question, because the environment can be the same, but the experience can be different, right? So the experience is what you're aiming for, but you get that experience by creating an environment. Does that make sense? So two people can react differently to the same stimuli, or I guess that's the way to make that word single. Stimuli. I'm not an English major by any stretch of the imagination. Thank God for spell check. But yeah, so the environment is very important in order to influence what people take away from it. And one part you have control of, the other you don't, right? So I'm always trying to get feedback on how people were influenced by the environment. So I'll focus more on the environment part of it. But we have a client whose number one concern is audience experience. And I met this person early on in my career, and I remember asking them, hey, do you want this size screen or this size format, or do you want to do a 3:1, 16:9? And Jenny said to me, we care more about the experience and we care about the particular details or specs, right? And that stayed with me.
Yep.
And when clients give you those kind of nuggets, sometimes they don't realize how important that is for you to help them get that environment. As far as the environment, one of the things that we love to do is to coach our clients on what we call the sacred space of the ballroom. And I know you're a fan of this too, Sarah, where you don't let your audience just kind of haphazardly walk into the ballroom at any old given time. What you
Yes.
do is you hold the doors. And what that does is two things, right? We've all been young and been to a nightclub and we see that line. Well, when you have a live event and you hold the doors, you're forcing people to do the very thing that they get the most value out of events, which is to meet other people, right? The second is content, right? But a lot of people say we come for content, but it's the people that you meet at events that are really where people get a lot of value from. So when you hold people at the doors, you naturally build up an excitement, right? An anticipation. People are smelling good, they're looking good, they've got their logos, their brands on, they've got excuse me, there's joking going around. So you're forcing these interactions that would not happen if everybody
Yeah.
was lined up facing in the same direction in theater style seating, right? Or classroom, but whatever. So it's very important that you build that anticipation, and then a couple, maybe depending on how large the crowd is, but if you've got like 2 or 3 thousand people, you're going to want to open that door about a half hour, 45 minutes early. So then you make a grand opening. Obviously, VIPs are let in first. That's another part of that FOMO. And then we need VIP people, right? Because this is a very expensive art that we're involved in. So the VIPs help with that, and the VIPs get the priority seating. And when you open the doors in this grand fashion, and you have your event staff greeting people, and you've got the music just 1 decibel louder
Yeah.
than it should be, right? Then you've got that
Yes.
anticipation. People know that something's about to go down, right? And obviously, music selection is very important. Obviously, it's high energy. Even the music is thought about a lot more than people realize. So you open them in, I call it like this sacred space. So people come in and the anticipation is there. And we have to tell people, stop running, because they're just running in excitement. When somebody else sees that person, well, what are they running for? And it's that is a part of creating the environment, right? And then when it's over, you let 1 or 2 songs play, but then you usher the people out, letting them know that when you're here, this is a teaching environment. This is a moment. It's sacred. But when we're done, we'll give you time to chat, but then we force everybody out of the ballroom, lock the ballroom, and then another forced interaction, right? So that's one of many ways that we try to control the environment to influence people, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. No, you're using all these little bits of the environment to create the experience. There's so many of these like micro moments that you've thought through ad nauseum that all play together to create the experience that the client is going for.
Yeah, when it all works together, and then normally it's after day on day two. Day one is always like, okay, is the airplane gonna get lift and fly? But once day one is done, it kind of the anxiety gets back to normal. It doesn't go away; it gets back to normal.
I love that you talked about the level of the music, and we're on the exact same page about the decibel level. I love the music to be just slightly louder than is comfortable because it just is a signal to the body, like at the core, that there is something that's about to happen that I should be getting
Yeah,
excited for. And there's something that's going to require my attention, and it's such an important tool, and I can't underscore enough that clients don't pay enough attention to music selection and volume and placement of where songs should go
yeah.
as they should. It's almost always like this afterthought because you figure that the most important piece of the environment is what the stage
Yeah.
looks like, but there's just so many other things that go into it, and you just rattled off like a half dozen Music being one of the ones that that I'm latching onto here, but that it's such a critical piece of. I mean, have you ever walked into a dinner party and they didn't have music playing, and like you felt this sense of awkwardness, or it was the wrong music and it just was jarring and it didn't jive with what was supposed to be happening. And I think that's I always talk about how your event is the live embodiment of
Absolutely.
your brand. And I like to compare it to walking into a mall and going into a store, and perhaps like it's a clothing store, and the aesthetic and the music and the smell, it's all been thought
Yes.
about, right?
I'm glad you said smell too, because we just for the show in Austin, we have an infuser, and for the foyer where there is the store where we sell swag. But when you think about
Yeah.
the you hit on it, the humans music is the most effective way to encode a feeling or a lesson, right? When we learned our ABCs, it was through rhythm, right? Not through rote memory. So the content that comes from stage is not going to land like music will. Now, obviously, they can't sing the content to you, but music and smell are the deepest parts of ways to encode a feeling in a human being. And then what you say to them, right? And that's only after what Maya Angelou teaches is how I made you feel. So first is music, sound, and how I made you feel, and only then will you remember what I told you. So as Sarah mentioned, the music is to get them in a state of excitement. And when one person sees another person's excited, and the music can't be too loud. Right? There's levels to it, but let's be clear. You don't want to just be like,
Yeah.
I went up to 11 with it. You know what I'm saying? You want to go to 10.3. And then with smell, we just started to dip our toe into that, but that's just in a very confined area. I'm not going to try to, influence 2,000 people because somebody's going to have I got an allergy to anything that smells like, like the hotel,
Right.
the one hotel. But for the store, because of what psychology teaches us, I was able to convince the client and very easily to get an infuser for that space. And then also, and I'm not gonna run data to see, did the sales go up or down? That's out of my concern. But we are now experimenting with scent. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your feeling on live plants and floral, either on the stage or in the pre-function area?
Floral. It's like the 90s are calling and they want their FICA tree back, right? We don't do floral on the stage unless we're in Miami and it's a living wall. And then, so in the event for the event in Austin, Texas, we were able to get a living wall approved because of the brand. If the brand is called Growth, right? So when I hear Growth, I instantly thought, oh, let's get a 8 foot by 8 foot wall, a living wall. And they were like, well, do you want real plants or fake plants? You already know what the answer was, right? They've got to be real, right? I've never seen anybody do a floral wall with the logo in the wall, spelling out the logo. And the client liked it so much, he said, order 2 of them, and then you design one and have the floral company design the other one. And we got lucky and we found a place in Austin that did it. They're about $7,000-8,000 per wall, for the 3 or 4 days. So,
Yeah.
but if you're gonna do it, then do it, reclaimed wood with floral maybe spelled out, but don't just put a tree or a plant on the stage. And if you're in an interview, let's say we're doing a sit down interview, I always like orchids because they don't need all this other stuff to go along with it, and it's elegant and simple. And I love the orchid, but that's just me being biased, to be quite honest. But no trees on stage unless it makes sense because of what the brand is about. If it's the Arborist Society, then you should probably figure out. But don't just put a tree. Do something creative, right? Put half of a tree and then CNC the logo into the tree. Don't just put a tree just because it's the Arborist Society.
What's your favorite moment at events that you produce?
There's two moments, right? The first moment is showing up with a plan that's as detailed as possible. And when the truck is loaded and we're done. Right? And I say that because one is super important, and the other one is like I don't have a lot of fun throughout the production. Right? Because I'm
We can work on that.
But I'm constantly scanning and trying to figure out what next. I feel like if I'm relaxing, I'm missing something. And there's some things that I do, like the most dangerous moment for a crew is about 45 to 30 minutes before a show starts on the first day. Because what happens is you should be all done, right? So what the crew does is they relax and they start talking about how many points LeBron scored, what happened on Snowfall or Breaking Bad.
Yes.
So when I see that, I instantly break up the pattern by saying, okay, what are we missing? Are we all straight? Did we test the clicker? I am obsessive about as many details, right? So if you take care of the smaller details, I've trained my guys to take care of the smaller details. So when you train people to take care of the smaller details, the bigger details have a likelihood that they will go met, right? But if people aren't thinking about what could happen or what's about to happen, they're going to miss what's going to happen. So that's why I don't have much fun, because I'm always thinking about what's next. I'm not thinking about what's going on now. So my favorite moment is coming with a solid plan, getting there 3 hours before the riggers, listening to classical music and laying my plans out, and just know that we're about to change this empty.
Yes.
And remember, it was in Orlando. We did it in Orlando too. This is an empty canvas, and we are blessed to be able to paint a picture on it, and away we go. And then 4 days later, when the van is packed, then it's like, cool, let's go have some tacos and let's talk. And those are my two favorite book-ended moments.
Oh, what are you reading right now?
I am reading two books. One is The 50th Law with Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent, and Robert Greene. He's the 48 Laws of Power guy. And the 50th Law is fearlessness. If you know 50 Cent's story, that became the 50th Law. It's a book that they wrote together. And the 50th Law is fearlessness. And then T. Harv Eker, Millionaire Mindset, that my dear friend Sarah recommended.
Yes.
And it was very apropos, right on time. So those are the two books that I'm reading. And oftentimes I'll read two books at the same time to get that collision of ideas. And remember, as creatives, we try to take ideas from two different domains and bring them in together where they may not, you're always looking for influences from different domains to bring them into another domain. Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talked about that in the great book Flow, which is another great book.
Yes.
Don't get me started on books too, because
Another show, another day. Adam, it's been so fun to have you here on the podcast today. I want to know, where can Linchpin Nation find you? If we've got somebody who wants to host a conference and they know that they need an A-team creative agency and production company, where should they go?
Our Instagram page. We have a website, proxyav.com, but Instagram is where we post things on 3 or 4 times a week. So it's ProxyAV on Instagram, ProxyAV. Or reach out to Sarah, right? So Sarah and I work together as on an ad hoc basis. And so our Instagram is at ProxyAV or ProxyAV.com.
Thank you so much, Adam. It's been
awesome.
a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Green Room Central podcast. If you loved this episode, then please take a screenshot on your phone and post it to Instagram. And be sure to tag at Sarah Pfeiffer and let me know why you liked it and what you'd like to hear or who you'd like to hear from in the future. That'll help me know what to create for you. Also, if scaling events in your business sounds like something you want to tackle this year and you need a coach, let's connect to see if one-on-one coaching is for you. Just go to greenroomcentral.com. You and I can work together one-on-one throughout the course of the year and dive deep into the inner workings of your events and business. You'll receive mentorship, personalized feedback, and customized guidance to define your goals and achieve your next level of success. Go to greenroomcentral.com right now to apply. I appreciate your commitment to leveling up and learning the mindset and strategy of live events. Keep going. Keep learning. If you want more, head over to greenroomcentral.com for show notes and all the links from today's episode.